can anyone can answer, but requested to Dr. Sana to address.
Okay,
Okay.
Misbah. I also believe anyone can answer, but as Misbah has told me, but still I would like to take Dr. Nurullah point on you. What I have understood, Misbah, what you wanted to ask was, if I can rephrase, that you actually want to know that what exactly the balance are we supposed to keep between the previous literature and the latest literature. This is what I have understood from the question. Well, Misbah, I believe this has also already been addressed by Dr. Noor, but still, what is important is we need to give credit to those to whom it is due. Okay? And the main balance which we need to incorporate into the literature or while grounding the hypothesis is, after giving credit to what is due, we should explain how our work complements or challenges their work. Okay, so whenever the hypothesis or the purpose of literature is what is already has been done, you do need to mention it, fine. But what becomes more important is how the your work is going to complement the previous work, or how is it going to challenge the work. But mostly what we're supposed to do while keeping the balance is, we should of course move on, as one of the principles which Dr. Nurullah has mentioned is of the inclusion and exclusion. The literature prior to 2014 is termed as previous literature, and the literature which is recent, we should mention it as the contemporary research or the latest research which is being mentioned. And one of the, as a reviewer, as an examiner, everyone is looking forward to have the latest research into it. So where we are talking about the balance, so the balance should be there, but of course balance should be there to the extent of how much it is going to add value into our new work. I believe this has addressed your question, but if our moderator and our guest speaker would like to add, so they're most welcome.
Yeah. So, Dr. Noor, any your suggestion?
Okay, I think she answered most of it, but I'll just add a bit of what I believe and practically what we have learned, because these questions, as I mentioned, I would like to answer question because these are not planned questions. So whatever comes in your mind, you would like to
Yeah.
even being being a faculty member, even after a PhD, there are certain questions you always believe I should ask. So
Yes.
when we go on international conferences, normally we try to learn more. Okay, I think the when we talk about the balance, I don't know, she's talking about putting your opinion in terms of a balance or a quantity in terms of literature, like how much you should put. So if I should know that, I think I'll proceed with answer.
Yes, Ms. Ba, can you answer it, please? What do you mean by the balance?
Sir, balance mean how we can add something from our side.
Your own opinion as a researcher, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay,
got
all
it.
right.
Okay, so the first thing I think Dr. Sana, she already addressed that you have to put your own inclination or your opinion, or we can call it commentary on that. That's more important, because it's just not writing or copy pasting, either you're rephrasing. It's not good enough, because it's mean you're just reproducing the work over and over. So in terms of, that's one of the important point, you have to put your own insight as a researcher or particular context which you're working. It's always, when we talk about inclusion, exclusion, or relevancy, we always believe what is your research question, and then based on your model, basically you have to be very specific. As I mentioned, if you're working on pro-environmental behavior, you cannot include every behavior. So one of the type is OCBE. You can go, if you're going with the OCBE construct, then you have to stick to that. So you cannot commentary on all the other types. So you have to be more specific. Another, when we talk about putting your own point of view, in every topic, in every research, we have a too widespread opinion. School of thoughts, you can say. We can, in research, we can say the rule of thumbs. So normally we discuss the both, the flip side, the negative and the positive, the pros and cons, but then we go with the majority. As I
Yeah.
mentioned, let's say when we talk about job satisfaction, so let's say if you would like to see the relationship between job satisfaction, it's a very classical example, job satisfaction and let's say turnover intentions. and then you're discussing your result, either you're discussing in your literature part or maybe the findings part. So then maybe let's say 200 researcher, they said that it's let's say 50% researchers said it's job satisfaction is contributing to turnover, but then say 30% say it's not over in particular context, in particular geography or particular organization setup. So you have to discuss both the point of views. Normally we always in discussion we go with the positive, we are negating the negative side. So most of our literature is basically polarized toward one particular school of thought. So we shouldn't do that, even just for the sake of our hypothesis. So this is whatever the normal practice the researcher do being a PhD student, there you always criticize the positive side. Let's say a particular relationship you want to justify, you're throwing everything to justify that one, but you're not talking about one or two references or particular researcher who are discussing, no, it's not, cannot be established. So the first thing, you have to give credit, as she mentioned, to those studies too which are negating the opinion, no matter it's marginalized or but you have to, I think this is how a kind of balanced approach, as I mentioned. So some people giving both equal weightage to positive and negative, but they're not putting their own inclination. So it's a kind of you have to put your own inclination, you have to discuss the pros and cons, both the positive and negative aspects, and then definitely when you look into the previous research, so you shouldn't be mentioning too much outdated work. Normally by rule of thumb we say the last 5 years is a good literature to do with, so you shouldn't be talking about something 1990 and then we are in 2020. So that's a kind of balanced outlook you have to keep with the literature.
Yeah, excellent answer,
Right, sir.
Dr.
Thank you so
Noor.
much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ji Khalid Beg, you have a question?
Yes, sir, I have a question.
Ji, please continue.
Sir, first of all, a profound privilege to listen to the eloquent talk of Dr. Saab, and my gratitude to you and Dr. Sana. I am a student of MSMS first semester. Sir, my question is probably sort of an out-of-box question. My question pertains to bringing in novelty to the existing formats of research. Most of the researchers in Pakistan advocate that if you are a starter in research, for example, if you are not a proper PhD, maybe you're doing MS, you should not get into a qualitative research. And we sort of suggest that first go for a quantitative research and then switch over to qualitative because of the formats involved and the procedures, and the argument is that at times the research article is hollow in spirit. Sir, I've been conducting research, not this type of scholarly research, but research pertaining to other domains. So I have come to a conclusion that there is a lot to be done in the domain of research itself. Why can't we have a hybrid model of qualitative and quantitative? Why can't we have our own formats which can give good strategic solutions for the art of business in the COVID environment to Pakistan? I mean, if we are starting research on something on an SLR format, then the research will become hollow in spirit because there is not much of data on what we are searching. A similar sort of question was asked by my mentor here, Dr. Sana, which was answered by you. But do you feel that there is something to be done in the domain of the research itself? Because what we are sort of teaching in the universities and what we are practicing is actually the research methodology which is being taught to us by which is not very indigenous. Your comments, please, sir.
Okay, I think it's a very lengthy sort of question, but what I come to conclusion, basically you're overlapping two things. The standard procedure, as I mentioned, we talk about the key hallmarks of research, or we talk about the processes of writing a paper or thesis, or putting either a qualitative methods or quantitative. There are key procedure, so you cannot abstain from that. When you abstain from that, basically you do not follow the research practices. Yes, you can go with quantitative, you can go with qualitative, you can go with mixed method, that's all allowed. Let's say, for example, if you want to go with mixed method, as you mentioned that most of you are stopping you not to do a qualitative research and you would like to do something new. As I mentioned, you're working in an area where there is no questionnaire, even nothing much explored. So you can explore it with the qualitative, what you can done. So there is nobody, basically there is no sort of blockage that where you can't do, you can do, but Yes, there are particular set of protocols. When we talk about quantitative research, they have a different protocol. Basically, these stems from a school of thought. When we talk about positivists, so they believe you can measure any problem in a numeric way by assigning them numbers. But then qualitative say not, you cannot. Like suppose let's say job happiness, job satisfaction. The qualitative school of thought have issues with the numbers. They say how you can say somebody is that much happy, because happiness is a subjective matter. Might be I'm happy with my job, I'm the place I work, but I'm not least bothered with the salary part. But another person might be talking about the compensation. So lots of concepts which are qualitative in nature might not be addressed well in a quantitative manner. So you have to look into the nature of the problem you're diagnosing. You talked about the COVID kind of, yes, you can do research on COVID. So, but that falls basically not in a social sciences domain. Then that goes to overlap between the medical sciences and maybe a flip of social sciences. If you would like to see the implication of the COVID, post-COVID sort of, impact on economy, yes, it can be on a business side. But if you particularly look into the SOPs of COVID, that's fall in the medical sciences. So you have to see your own premises as well. That either which sort of in which zone you're falling. Being a business student, you cannot look into psychological problems or sociology research, like what's going on with the society, how people behaviors are changing. So you have to stick to the business discipline. But yes, again, as I said, there is no sort of restriction. You are having a PhD degree, you don't have a PhD degree. Research is basically it's a training.
Yeah.
So you get trained, you train others.
Yes.
Right? So there's no point there. Like I saw so many people writing a very good piece of article, they don't have a PhD. Right?
Yeah.
The similar way teaching and PhDs are a different thing. Every PhD cannot teach properly. They cannot deliver. So I think the question which I answered, you can try different methodologies. As I mentioned, there are constraints on scarcity of resources everywhere. So you can try any set of topic. Yes, for a qualitative, I have a suggestion for you. Normally, if you look into the global academia, so you will find 60%, 60 to 70% research article quantitative and the 30% qualitative. That's the reason, because the qualitative protocol is so rigorous. You have to get trained first how to do a observation. There's a particular techniques for doing a observation. There's a particular technique how to develop your interview protocol. Everybody cannot do that. So why we always recommend student to go quantitative, because it's the researcher involvement is minimum. You have to just fill the questionnaire by somebody, you put into a software and get the data results. But in a qualitative, basically you have to get trained first to learn the key skills, and then you have to apply it. So it's a bit more time consuming, I would say. It's not difficult or impossible, but I think you have to see your own skill set, which skill set you have. If you have a skill set you can do that. So, but keep in, as I mentioned, the hallmark of research, you cannot change, let's say, normally we use a questionnaire from other studies. You cannot say that, no, I'm not using this questionnaire. Then you have to come up with a valid reason. So you want to abstain from a particular school of thought, or you don't want to follow your valid, your justification should be strong enough, then the rest of the scholars should agree with you. So this is, I think, what the best I can.
Yeah,
Sir,
the perfect
you.
answer. Yeah, very perfect answer, Dr. Noor. Yeah, very elaborative answer. Yes, Khalid, this is what we do actually, and you have a limited time in your MS MPhil degree, so you have to finish your degree requirement as well. So that, as mentioned by Dr. Noor, that you have a right expertise for that, only then you can go for qualitative. And since in MS MPhil you do not have that much time, so that's why mostly we recommend you people to go for the quantitative. So very perfect answer, Dr. Noor. Thank you so much. Any other question, and then we would like to wind up the session.
Imran Khan is here. I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
yes, please.
I'm student of Berry University doing MS and second semester. Dr. Noor, I have a question. That SLR sounds really very beneficial for us, but as we don't have the access to the databases, in that case, what do you suggest us to do? I mean, how to find any way out to get
Okay,
the access of
maybe the
those
answer is not very correct. One of my students asked me, the one I'm supervising, basically I'm
Yes.
helping them to. I have to be very honest with you. I know the protocol. I'm quite new to qualitative area, especially, sorry, the review articles. So now since I have very good command on the quantitative side, so I would like to learn more. That's the reason I would like to deliver on that part. You can create an ID in a Peblon. There might be an opportunity because then you connect there, and then, but then again, as I mentioned, they have three different levels. Either you are educator in terms of your teaching faculty, right? And then either you're a student. So always there is a room per student, but the databases basically is as per institutional protocol, mean they will assign subscription to institution rather than individual. So the one I'm using from Technology University, from where I did my PhD. So I'm working with my another supervisor, so they give me the access. So potentially, what I'm trying to say, that's the issue that we have. But yes, if let's say one of your colleague in a foreign university, or maybe in a place where he can connect you, so then you can use it. Mean, let's say, even suppose he use his own login, but you can help you to the way I mean discuss. So you can get, suppose if you get an Excel sheet, right? Then the rest, I think, as I mentioned, it's a thorough work to go and read and then come up with interpretation. So I think the access issue now, we can't much comment on there, but probably I think HEC might be resubscribed. So we just can, hope for the best that may happen.
Right, sir.
So
Thank
that we
you.
can use.
Thank you very much. So finally, we have time to wrap up the things. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Noor, for accepting the invitation to talk with our Bahrain students. We would like to thank you on the behalf of Bahrain University, Dr. Sana, and me, myself. Thank you so much for giving the precious time, and you have discussed it with so extensive things, and you have shown practical version of it as well. It was a very wonderful learning session for all of the participants. In fact, I'm getting a lot of messages from the participants that we should have another practical physical session with the Dr. Noor. So we will definitely call you on campus, and please accept our invitation for the campus as well, so that the student, they have the live session with you, and they could interact with you, and they can, as you have enlighten them a lot with the literature review and other things, and they are asking not only restricted to the literature review, but they have asked so many other things which you have excellently answered. So thank you so much once again, and we would like to have you on campus as well. So once again, thanks. Anything you would like to conclude for the student and for us, please go ahead.
Okay, I think thank you very much. Due to the post-COVID situation, since like we are going to campus, we are having classes. So today I have 2 classes. My energy level was so down, but still I try to do something better, because once you promise something, and especially for those students, because as most of them mentioned, we have a very resource limitation, and then very unfortunately, basically, we're not putting much information to our student because of so many reasons. I don't want to mention. So I think it's one of the opportunity.
Yes.
I want to do it for a greater good, right? So when you asked me to do, I think I didn't even had a second thought. The slot for having issue, when you said it's on the second time, so I just said, okay, the Monday would be fine. So I think we can have this session for the betterment of the students. No matter, I think we can have one session on how to choose the methods part, right? Or how to frame our qualitative, quantitative questions. So I think we can do that also. I think a very quick, what I forgot to add during the lecture, most of the students are having issues while reading the paper, and they're not getting the gap, or how to get a gap and to propose their model. I think that the practical suggestion is that even you're doing systematic or traditional way, once you read sufficient paper in a particular area, then you do what? You come up with your own proposed model. Let's say you have particular IV and DV and maybe moderator and mediator, and then you scan that through literature.
Yes.
So might be you come across nobody work on it, you can go with that model. But maybe you come across some other new variables which might interesting to you, suggested by other researcher, you can put in. So that setup drill you can do for like certain time, and then you can come up with a model which will be novel in terms of, and there should be a gap where, because once you put your own thoughts and propose a model, there is a very rare chance that it should be overlapped with somebody else's model. But let's say most of you sometime doing catching one variable from one model, another from another, and then coming up with something where you can't find a theory, you can't find a rationale to justify it. So most of the quantitative researcher, please always make sure your instrument can be measurable, the first part, because you choose a model, you write a proposal, later on you come to know there is no questionnaire. So I think these are the basic things you should take into account. And I think I will just conclude here with that. And it was pleasure while talking to you,
thank you so
Dr.
much.
Sana, and the rest of the students.
And let me tell you one thing more, Dr. Noor. Your energy was superb, and your presentation and your tone was so wonderful that I just felt that it is just a morning, not an evening.
Well, I mean, I get drained because I have 2-3 classes to
you.
So
really, hats off to
definitely.
you. Dr. Sana, would you like to say anything, and then we just conclude?
Thank you so much, Dr. Noor Khan, for being over here on this platform of Knowledge Center OB Bahria University. And just a slight input, just if you would like to, sir, how did you find our students?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't interact, but I think
you can be a bit honest.
No, I mean, okay, because I cannot judge them. I don't have to be judgy that way, but because I believe students should be student, no matter from Bahria, from NUST, because what I found out even when last year I went to Australia, basically the issue here is basically nobody's taking the initiative. Now this is a 1.5 hour session. We did that. Okay, and I'm glad we did that. So it's basically a slight, we can call hope or pray for the student, those who are really want to work, but they don't know how to do basically. And then they cannot blame just singly a supervisor because he's supervising 7-8 students at the same time. So he doesn't have also time to do that. And then about this research, basically it's a training. So the more you get trained, then the more you learn basically. So we are also still on a learning curve and we are beginners, but it's always good to share and then you learn and also, listen to different opinions. So I think the time is, running short. So before it's says goodbye without a note. So thank you very much. And I'll be signing off.
Thank you so much for having you. It was a wonderful session. And inshallah, in future, we will be having more sessions.
Inshallah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.